everyone, Mark Montgomery here with Great College Advice, and I am so excited that you're here today to talk about the 4 keys to selective college admission, the 4 things that you really need to know to reconceptualize this entire college selection and application process. So let's just dive right in. I want to share with you the things that I know and have learned over my years of advising students, and so that you too can understand what you need to know to avoid the pitfalls of this process and be more successful all the way through. So here we go. So what do we seek as parents? Well, we are always looking out for that straight and clear path for ourselves and for our students. And in order to do that, we need to understand the rules of the road. We need to know what to anticipate as we travel that road towards college admissions at the selective universities across the country. And really, you can think of it, there are 2 aspects to this whole process. First, there is the determination of the destination. Choose where you want to go. And then once you know where you want to go, what the target is, then you're putting the destination into your GPS so that you can arrive at that destination without any trouble, without any mistakes. So we do think of selective college admission as a roadmap, that if we just understand where the destination is and we understand the twists and turns along the path, we will arrive at that destination. Pretty simple. However, it's not quite so simple, because students who are seeking the top universities in this country need to blaze their own path. They need to get off the road. They need to create their own road toward the colleges that they seek. They have to have the bravery, the courage to get off the road. So as we talk about this all along the way, I want you to keep this image in your mind, that there is not a very clear roadmap into getting into the Ivy League or other top universities in the United States. It's much more complex than that. I'm going to share with you today the 4 keys to success in this process. I'm going to share with you what you need to know and how you can guide your child so that you can understand what everyone else is doing wrong in this process and why there isn't more success in this process. What are the secrets you need to know? And with these secrets, I think you will be able to increase your chances of success. It's understanding and changing your mindset as you approach this process. So who is this guy, Mark? Well, I am a lifelong educator. I've been working with students from the beginning of time, basically. Even when I was in college, I was teaching. I went to Dartmouth College, an Ivy League school, and then I became a high school French teacher. Decided I didn't want to teach language all my life, so I went to get a graduate degree at Tufts University in international relations. Along the way, I was an instructor at Harvard and at Tufts, then became a professor at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology and the University of Denver. There, I also rose to become an associate dean, so I understood a lot of the management of how college works. And all through this, I have been an educator, a mentor, and a guide. And yeah, as my students will say, I'm also kind of a geek. I have that professorial bent, but again, I'm sharing some of this analysis of things that I've learned over the years, and I'm excited to share those things with you today. What about my company, Great College Advice? Well, for 11 years, we have been guiding competitive students through this process to the top universities in the United States. We've worked with over 500 students from 44 different states. Yeah, there are a couple there we're missing, and from 22 different countries. 97% of our students, I'm really happy to say, 97% of our students have been able to gain admission to one of their top 3 choices. We also work with students who are seeking merit-based financial aid, scholarships, and our top award is now $160,000, and that doesn't include some of the pro bono students we've worked with that have actually gotten free rides, but for students looking primarily for merit, that is a really healthy boost to the family finances. And our average merit scholarship turns out to be about $60,000 per college per student. We've worked with applications to 282 different countries. Really, that's only a small fraction. If you think of it, there are about 4,000 institutions of higher learning in the United States. We really deal with students going to the top 5% or so of those schools. But one of the things that I think really sets us apart from our peers in college advising is that we take the time to develop real, strong relationships with our students. We are mentors and guides. We don't look at this as a completely transactional process. So we take the time to get to know our students and befriend them and do things with them, hang out, go bowling, go hiking, and participate in their lives. We feel that we're providing wisdom, not just advice. We are also providing mentorship, not just guidance along the road, but we're showing them how to be successful. We also look at this as part of the long-term growth and development of our students. Yes, we do understand that part of that growth is obtaining the admissions letter as they're applying to college, but we're really thinking about this as a longer term process because we want to make sure that they are prepared for the long term and what comes while they are in college and what comes after college. We are also looking at this as a process that is transformative. We're not just, providing advice as a consulting relationship. We're trying to create an experience for the student that is truly going to transform them from children into adults and be well prepared for their own future. Parents, you can do this. This is a complex issue, a complex process of getting students into the top schools. But we know from experience that you can guide your student through high school in a way that is sane and fulfilling and maybe even just a little bit fun. You can find great colleges that will launch your students onto great futures. You can avoid going broke. I mean, it is expensive, but it is possible to navigate this process without losing your nest egg for the future. You can reduce stress at home. This process can be extraordinarily stressful for both students and for parents, but it is possible to reduce that stress so that everyone can enjoy it a little bit more. And with some reconceptualization and really thinking and understanding how this process works, you can make the transition from high school to college happy and healthy and, as I say, a lot more fun. That's something that we definitely try to stress as we go through this process. It should be fun, right? So I'm going to share with you these four keys to success so that you can unlock this entire process of going to selective colleges and universities in the United States. As we go through this, I am going to be sharing some resources, and especially as we get to the end, I'm going to present these resources a little bit better. I'm going to give you our essential tips for college admissions, for selective college admissions, and I'm going to give you an ebook on planning the perfect college visit. So stick with me through to the end, and I will show you how to get these resources for your own edification and help you through this process. So now we turn to the four keys to success. How can you unlock this selective college admissions process? Well, the first thing is you need to avoid the first mistake that everyone makes, and that is thinking about college admissions as a timeline, as somehow it's a set of steps. I mentioned earlier it's like a roadmap, but think of it not like a timeline, that if you just follow these steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, ta-da, you get into the Ivy League. There are no steps for getting into the Ivy League, and there is no timeline for getting into the Ivy League. Let me explain this a little bit further. The timeline is just dead easy. When do our students need to do well in school? They need to do well in school every single day throughout high school. When should they engage in meaningful extracurricular activities? Well, of course, when they're not in school, when they have time outside of school to engage in these fun activities. When should they participate in cool summer activities? The summertime, and obviously you have to apply before then, but you're planning for your summer. When do you take standardized tests? Well, on the dates that they are offered, and that is published on the web, and it's super easy to find out. When do you submit the applications? Again, look it up on the web. It's so easy. It's whatever date you choose, the university you choose, they provide those dates. It's super, super simple. The timeline is a snap. But it's all the other stuff that's hard. Identifying the students' likes and dislikes, discovering their strengths and their weaknesses, selecting a college major. That's not something that you can do very easily. I like to think of the college selection and application process as really more of a circle, an organic process that contains 12 different elements. And you can see them all here. All of these things are important, but what is the timeline here? It's really harder to discern that when we think of it as an organic process, we don't think of it as a step-by-step, do this, do that, and then, ta-da, you get into the Ivy League. That's really not that helpful because it just doesn't work that way. Remember the image of the student who blazes the path, who creates their own opportunity. That is not something that you can give a student a roadmap or a timeline and they're going to be able to achieve. It's helpful to think about what Yale says they want as an example. And on their website, they make it very clear that they are looking for 3 things to prove academic distinction. First is their school performance, what they do in their grades, what standardized tests have they taken and what scores have they achieved on those tests, and finally the teacher recommendations. How good are those teacher recommendations? Do they present a picture of an academically interested and distinctive student? But after that, they're looking for these other 5 things, these qualitative factors: motivation, energy, curiosity, leadership, ability, and special talents. And when we think of this as a timeline, especially these 5 things, it becomes pretty ridiculous. Because when am I going to work on my motivation? Oh, I think I'll work on that in the first 2 months of my junior year, and then I'm going to turn to my energy. Or I'm going to do curiosity on Thursdays, and I'm going to do my leadership ability on Mondays. No, you can't think of it like a timeline. This is an organic result of the students' engagement in whatever it is they're doing on a daily basis from the beginning of 9th grade all the way to the time they apply. So if we think of it as a timeline, we're going to get stuck. We're going to be focusing on the wrong things. We're going to be focusing on SAT tests and ACT tests. We're going to be focusing on what date should I ask my teacher for the recommendation. The recommendation is a result of doing well in school throughout. So again, thinking of it as just a timeline is not what's going to make a student successful. Yes, there are certain dates that have to be managed along the way, but it's erroneous to think of it as a timeline. It's better to think of your application as a story. This is a story that begins to write itself, as early as kindergarten or before, and the story is something that is going to be told on the application and published when the student hits the submit button. The story is not something that you can write on a timeline. Ask any author. It tends to be an organic process where you go back and you edit and you retool and you make new decisions all along the way in order to create an interesting story. The protagonist is the student, and then there is the setting, right? And then there is the action, and then there is the climax, and in some sense the denouement. So we're going to be telling a story on the application, but this is not something that you can write or create according to a specific timeline. Focus on the what, not the when of your student's preparation. What is your student doing to prepare? What are the main goals that the student has, and how are they achieving those goals on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? That's what you should be focusing on, the what. Stop thinking about when and focus on what. That is what is going to make students successful. So what about the second key to selective college admission? Well, it's not about what you want in this process. It's about what the colleges want. If we focus on what you want, we won't really understand how this game really works. So we have to think about what colleges want. And what do colleges want? They want 3 main things. They want money, prestige, and ranking. So let's start with money. The bottom line. Students with money are at the front of the line in this process because colleges want and need money to stay open. They are businesses. They need to have customers who will pay. They also have these pricing models that are constructed to maximize their revenues. Yes, they kind of confuse us as consumers, but that's kind of like what car dealers do, right? They create pricing that's really opaque and you don't really understand. Okay, well, there's a reason that car dealers do that, because it helps them to maximize their profits. Same thing with colleges. The way they price things is in their interest to do so. They also have institutional goals that they are upholding as they are awarding financial aid. They are not thinking, when they're awarding financial aid to a particular student, they're not really thinking about that particular student as much as they are thinking about their institutional goals as a business. And how can they make sure that they get what they need for their business? So again, it's not about the individual student, it's about some overarching institutional goals. And your debt, by the way, is their profit margin. They're perfectly happy for you to go into debt if you would be so kind as to do so, because they will take that money and that is what they use to stay in business, right? So you need to understand what they're doing and understand that it's really not about you, it's about them. Prestige also is a function of the alumni, not of the students that are currently at the school. So they don't admit students based on what they have already done up to the point of graduation from high school. Rather, they're making a bet on how well students will do after they graduate. So you go to a horse race and you place your bets. You're looking at maybe how well they're doing in the past, but you're trying to bet on how well they will do in the next race. Think of it this way. Harvard is the university that has graduated more presidents than any other institution in the United States. And Harvard really is very proud of that record, right? So as they are looking at the applicants to Harvard, they're not looking at, oh, you were the student body president. No, they're looking which student among this pool of applicants has the potential to be the next president of the United States. That's what they're really looking for. Who has the staying power? Who has the dynamism and the vitality to carve their own path and therefore eventually become the president of the United States? Past performance does indicate future success. We are looking at that past performance, but when we accept somebody, we're thinking about the prestige of the university. How will we look 20 years down the road after we have accepted this class? What will this class bring us in terms of prestige? Not what is the prestige that we will give to the student, right? It's not about prestige to the student, it's the prestige to the university. That is what they're looking at. Then there is this third thing that colleges want, and that is rankings. It determines everything that colleges do and how they do it. Trustees of universities are pestering the president of the university to push the university up in the rankings. Presidents, therefore, will manage by objectives. That's good management speak, to raise those rankings. They will look at what the indicators are on the U.S. News and World Report rankings, and then they will manage the institution to achieve what those rankings value. It's become so crazy that the Moody's bond rating, which affects a college's ability to borrow money on private equity markets, the Moody's rating is keyed to the ranking. So the higher the ranking, the more access the college has to borrow money on the open market. So colleges are not going to stop thinking about these rankings. They are going to be managing towards them every single day. So when they're looking at your application, they are asking themselves, will this application help us move up in the rankings? They're not thinking, oh, you're going to be so lucky because you're going to come to a school with high rankings. No, they're looking at you and saying, what are you doing for us to increase our rankings? What are the elements of the rankings that colleges care about? These are some examples. They want a low admission rate because that will help them in their rankings. So what do? They want you to apply. They want everyone to apply, as many people as they possibly can, so they can reject your application, because that drives down their admission rate. They want high yield rates. A yield rate is the percentage of students who are given an offer of admission who take that offer. So at Harvard, the yield rate is around 80%, depending on the year. Most of the students who get an offer at Harvard take it. But there are other colleges that have a lower yield rate, so they're trying to drive that up. So what are they doing? They're pushing early admission, early decision programs harder and harder, and taking a higher percentage of their class in the early decision because they want a high yield rate. And if you commit early decision, then that's a 100% yield rate. So notice that that's a trend in this process. Test scores. Test scores are part of the rankings. The higher my test scores, the higher my ranking. So I don't really want your low test score. Your low test score doesn't tell me, I don't really care about what this says about you as a student. It says everything about us as an institution if we accept scores that are going to make our average go down. So this is one of the reasons why there are so many colleges and universities that are going test optional, because they don't want your test scores. They don't want to have to report them if they're not that great. So if they're below what the school wants and the school is test optional, please go test optional because you're helping the college achieve its objectives. Finally, these wait lists and deferrals and spring admits and all these new admissions programs that are very confusing and very troubling to applicants. They're just getting worse and worse. Well, the reason that colleges and universities have this is because it enables them to admit people off the books, outside of the normal application process. And those students who may have low test scores or may have slightly lower grades or may fit their institution in other ways but could harm their rankings, they want to admit them in a different way so they don't have to report those statistics to the government. So it's really important that you need to know a lot of these things, that the system here is stacked in favor of the college. It's not about you, it's about them. The process is purposely opaque and crazy and difficult to understand so that colleges can pursue their own interests. And yeah, sorry, you don't get your own interest, but the colleges have created this system for themselves. If you understand how colleges are behaving and why they are behaving that way, then you have taken a very strong step to understand how you can pursue your own interests. Because if your interests and the school's interests don't intersect, it's probably not going to happen. So if you can understand how your interests and the interests of the university intersect, then you're going to have more success in this process. But basically what you have to remember here is it's not fair. This whole process is not fair. And if you're looking for something to be clear and meritocratic and the best students always win, no, this is not how it works. Schools are businesses. Understand what their interests are, and you can understand how better to play the game to get what you want and need in a very unfair, unclear process. So let's turn to key number 3. And that is, don't research colleges, research the student. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I often will be, on the chairlift at the ski area, or I'll be in line at the grocery store, or I'll be talking to a group of friends, and people will ask me, is this college any good? Is this school a good one for engineering? Or which do you like better, Nimrod U or Knucklehead U? I mean, they want me to tell them what's better, and because they know that I know colleges, right? That I've been to a lot of colleges, I visit a lot of colleges, I know a lot of people in different colleges, both as students and as faculty or administrators. So they want my insider scoop into which is a good university and which is maybe a less good university. All right, well, that's a mistake, because researching colleges is not really going to tell us what the student wants or needs. We can research facts about the college. We can understand the number of students, the variety of majors, and how many majors there are. We can understand the kinds of residence halls that might exist on that campus and the number of dining outlets and how many cafes are there in the library anyway. We can also think about the number of swimming pools, or as one student put it to me, she really wanted a school with architectural harmony. What about the weather? What about the climbing walls? And what about free massages? This was a fun one on a campus tour when the tour guide said to the parents, "Oh, and we get free massages during finals." And the parents are looking at each other going, "Yeah, free, sure, free for our tuition money." Well, and then what about a lazy river? This is the newest thing in the arms race for amenities at colleges. This is Texas Tech. Look at that. It's a spa. It's a resort. They're catering to students' hedonistic tendencies, right? They want to provide the amenities that will make them more competitive. So, yes, we can research colleges, but what's really important is, what do you really need? What do you really need as a student? And this is where my geek comes showing through, is that college is about an education. College is about taking tests and writing papers and listening to lectures and taking notes and doing those problem sets and going to lab and whatnot. What do you need to be academically successful? What do you need to build your own knowledge and skills for the future so that you can go on to a fun and interesting career? How are you going to prepare yourself? What are the things you need personally to enable you to do that? And then separate those things from your wants. And your wants, okay, they could be a lazy river, but I'm thinking more basic. Who do you want to be your circle of friends? What kinds of things do you want to do outside of the classroom? Are you interested in the arts? Are you really going to go to all those ethnic restaurants every week, and are your parents going to pay for that if you're in a city? What do you need to enrich your life? What kinds of things do you want to learn? What experiences do you want to have on that college campus? And the way you're going to do that is look at yourself and ask yourself these questions about what do you need academically and what do you want beyond that. One of the problems with researching colleges is that the websites they have created confuse us as consumers rather than clarify. They don't really give us the information we need to make a good decision. They give us lots of pretty photos of things like climbing walls and lazy rivers, and they have lots of inspiring prose and news that is written for us to really inspire us or to excite us. This is marketing material, right? This is marketing material. This is not necessarily information that will help me to decide whether this college is going to give me what I want and what I need. They also give lots of facts and figures that may have little relevance to what you as an individual student seek. And what they also will provide plenty of information if they have it, if they are ranked highly. They will have lots of information about the rankings. Because, again, what they want you to think is that the rankings matter to you in choosing the college, when in fact they're trying to find and excite the students who will help them with their own rankings and move them up in the pecking order. They hide the real information you might need to decide whether this school is right for you. The best example is the catalog. And when I was going to college, there was no interweb. And so in order to figure out what a college offered, they gave you this big, heavy book that weighed, a couple pounds, and it had every single bit of information about that college and absolutely no pictures, no color anywhere. This information still exists on the web in the form of the catalog, or sometimes called a bulletin, but I dare you to try to find it. It's very difficult to find out what is required for this school if you want to graduate and what's required for each and every one of the majors that they offer. They never tell you also the number of majors in a department. They will say, we have 87 majors, or we'll have 127 majors. But maybe some of those majors haven't graduated anybody in the last 3 years. They're just on paper. You don't know that unless you start to dig underneath and try to find statistics in other places that will tell you that information. They also kind of hide the real price and what you're really going to pay. They put the sticker price on there just like at the automobile lot, right? You have this sticker price, and then there's the price that you probably will pay, but that's going to be different for every student, right? So they're not going to really tell you that price. They do have a couple of calculators on their websites that are mandated by law, but most of them are kind of hiding those things. They don't really want you to know. So important that these websites, trying to use information, they don't necessarily tell us what do we want and need. The next thing is that most campus visits are useless. They're dog and pony shows created by the Office of Admissions, which is really the marketing and sales department of any university. It's admissions, like we're going to decide whether you come, but basically what we're actually trying to do is sell our service and to get more and more students to apply, more and more customers. They are scripted. These tours are scripted, very heavily scripted, and the students have to memorize these tours. They also are told, go into this building, but please don't show them this building because this is the one that's really ugly. Make sure you show them the nice dorm, don't show them the ugly dorm. So you're only going to get the picture that the admissions people want you to see. You very rarely get a look at the real service that's being offered. You sometimes can go to a class, but that's just a one-shot deal with a professor that's been picked by the Office of Admission because they're generally a pretty good professor. So you don't really know what the student experience is going to be like on a daily, monthly, yearly basis for you. So again, you have to think about what you want before you go shopping for a college. And think about it. How many of us go shopping for a car by going to every single car lot in our city, looking at every single model and taking every single one for a test drive before we actually decide which one we're going to buy? No, that's not how we do it. We know what we want before we go searching for that car. We have already decided what we're going to use this car for. We already know that we want it in a certain color maybe. We also know that what kind of person we are. Are we that pickup truck kind of person, or are we that smart car kind of person? Do we want an old car or a new car? Do we want 14 cup holders or not? We know what we want before we go shopping. And when we know what we want, then we can find it, right? So think about what you want before you start taking all these campus tours. I'm going to give you some more information about campus tours later in this presentation, but for now, remind yourself that you have criteria before you go shopping. You need to research yourself as a student. You need to think hard about your academic interests. You need to know what kind of environments are going to help you to succeed. Are they going to be those small classes? Do you need to have a high level of intellectual rigor in order to succeed? What kinds of activities do you want to do outside of class? And what kinds of social environments are going to be best for you so that you, again, this is a school, that you can succeed in school? What is it you need? You need to look in the mirror and seriously consider what it is you need and what it is you want in order to be successful. So the definition of a good college, as I was saying before, it really depends on the student. It depends on your educational goals. It depends on your non-educational goals. You have to define those goals very clearly for yourself and then develop specific criteria by which you're going to make this selection. And this, folks, is hard to do. This is what's hard. It's easier to go out and look at colleges and say, ooh, pretty. Or you can say, ooh, they have a lot of interesting majors. Or they have a lazy river. That doesn't mean anything. What I need to understand is who you are and what you want, and then I can help you find a good college for you. Here's the last key, and that is that your education begins now, not when you get to college. One of my pet peeves about being a college counselor is that people come up to me all the time and say, will this look good on my college application? And that just drives me crazy because it's really wrong-headed. If you're living your life and making decisions today just because it's going to look good on your college application, then I'm looking at a student who's destined for a miserable high school experience because they're going to do things that they don't necessarily want to do just because it will look good on a college application. It's really wrong-headed and wasteful. It's crazy to me. I just don't understand this thinking. You cannot engineer the outcome. Right? You cannot necessarily, especially when we're looking at the most selective colleges and universities in the country, you cannot engineer your way into a particular college. But if you are a trailblazing student and you decide that you want to go off in a certain direction and make something happen for yourself, then colleges are going to be interested in you because you have had that bravery to go off and create that path for yourself. There is little cause and effect that is clear in this college admissions process that we can say, because you did this, that is why you got in. Or because you didn't do this other thing, that is why you didn't get in. It's very difficult. And when you put your application in, you will never get it back. And you will never get any commentary from those admissions officers or an explanation as to why you didn't get in. So living your life in order to improve your college application is a way to make your life miserable, unhappy, stressful, and full of conflict with your parents. So don't do that. Don't do that. I really hate the tick the box behavior that college admissions has become, because students are always asking me, well, I need to do some community service. I haven't taken any arts class. I'm not an athlete. I should be going to summer camps, right? What kinds of academic enrichment can I be following? Should I have a job? Should I just do a job shadowing? Should I do an internship? What kind of leadership should I do? And because they're trying to tick every single box in order to get into the college of their choice. Again, think of trailblazers. Trailblazers are not the same people who tick boxes. They are the people who look at themselves and say, what am I interested in? What are my aptitudes and my strengths? What are my goals? What do I want to do? What's going to make me happy? What's going to make me fulfilled? And then they make the conscious and very courageous choice to whoosh, go off in that direction. Anybody who has a checklist and thinks they're going to get into Harvard is crazy. That's just not going to work. You have to know what it is you like, what it is you're good at, and have the courage to go off in that direction and do it. That is what's going to make you an attractive candidate for a highly selective college and university. There's this difference between doing things and actually achieving things. And I think the problem with thinking about what looks good on your college application is it's this focus on doing things, like doing community service, doing a summer camp, doing an internship, doing some sort of service trip. No, what the colleges want, and we can go back to Yale and look at that rubric of the 5 things: energy, motivation, curiosity, leadership ability, and special talents. They want you to win things. They want you to achieve things. They want you to make something, sell something, be creative, be a leader. Go out and achieve things. Don't think about, I gotta just check these things off the list. That is not what's going to be helpful. What you need to do is really need to focus on learning. You are preparing to go to a college or university. This is an institution of higher learning. So you need to be reading books. You need to be consuming high quality media, not the kiddie videos, not PewDiePie. You need to get informed and stay informed. Engage with other people in meaningful, interesting ways. Attend lectures and events. You know, the Harvard application and several of the other super selectives will ask you, what events have you attended in the last 2 years that have been particularly memorable? They want people who are using the world as their classroom, who are really, really curious about the world, and then are activating that curiosity in whatever way makes the most sense. Because successful students are relaxed. Successful students who are blazing their own path, yeah, they're really busy, but they don't feel overworked for 1 minute. They're enjoying it too much. They are grounded in what they're doing, not worried about the future, not worried about whether they're going to get into this, that, or the other school. They're more interested in what they're doing than in what colleges will think of them. They are enjoying the present rather than fretting about their future, because this process of blazing their own path is just so much fun. So what should you as parents do? Well, let's recap really quickly. First of all, you need to focus on the what, not the when. Don't think of this as a timeline, and remind yourself that this is an organic, shifting, exciting, crazy, and should be fun process. It's the process of growing up. It's the process of being a kid. It's a lot of fun. Focus on the what and not the when, and it will be a more rewarding experience. Second, you need to understand college's priorities. You need to understand that they act in certain ways that are not consistent with your needs, your desires, your expectations. Don't fret about the things you cannot change about these colleges. They are going to be doing what they are doing. They're going to be following their interests, and there's nothing you can do about that. So don't sweat the small stuff. Trying to think about some sort of precise strategy to get into Princeton is just not healthy, because you cannot engineer it, because Princeton has the way it behaves, and it ultimately will decide whether or not you fit into their priorities. So don't sweat it. Relax. Third, focus on your priorities. Since you can't change the priorities of the colleges, you can at least focus on the priorities that you and your student have. Why is college important to you? What is this thing called an education that is important to you? What are your goals for your college years? Harvard, Princeton, Yale, they all ask that on their application. What do you want out of your education? Oh, I want prestige. I want a fancy college. That's not what the successful students are saying on their application. They have something more interesting to say. What do you want to learn? Who do you want to associate with? What are the resources you absolutely need to achieve your goals? Is it really the lazy river, or is it something else that will help you achieve your goals for the future? Focus on those priorities, and I guarantee you, you can get them. You also have to enjoy the present. High school should be fun. You don't want to sacrifice the present for some uncertain future that you cannot precisely engineer. Do the things that you enjoy and that you're good at. Don't tick those darn boxes all the time, because if you focus on your goals rather than on a particular destination, you will reach those goals. You may or may not arrive at a particular college or university, but by focusing on the goals, you will achieve them. I often think about what parents say all the time to their students, from the time they're in kindergarten or even preschool. We talk about them making good choices. And in thinking about choices, I turn to my favorite philosopher, Albus Dumbledore, who said to his young charge, Harry Potter, he said, "It is our choices, Harry, that show us what we truly are, far more than our abilities. It is our choices. And our choices are things that we make every single day. And the result of good choices is empowerment, that feeling of strength, not weakness, not being fretful about the future. Making good choices makes us powerful. And as parents, what do you need to be successful? Well, you need to adopt the right frame of mind. You need to understand these 4 keys and understand the framework of the entire process. And adjust your focus in the right places so that you can be more successful and more tranquil through this process, but that your student can be much more successful. When you have these 4 keys, you can reduce the tension in this process. You can increase the student's confidence that the outcome will be positive, that it will be a great outcome, and that you can separate this fact from this fiction. What colleges say they do and what they actually really do. Separate those things and stop listening to gossip and rumor. If you understand how the process works, you're going to be a lot happier. You're going to be able to focus on the things that really matter to you, really matter to your student, and avoid this feeling of panic, of uncertainty, of powerlessness. I can promise a lot in this outcome. I can promise that you can have a happier, more successful, more healthy experience. I can't promise a precise outcome. I can't promise a particular school, because as the Rolling Stones said in their famous song, you can't always get what you want. Sorry, you can't always get what you want. But the lyric goes on to say, but if you try sometime, you might just find you get what you need. So I can promise you, if you focus on the important things in this process, you will get what you need. I can promise a happier high school experience. Can't promise a specific school, but I can promise more fun in the college search process. I can help students stay better organized so they focus on the right things, not the crazy little tick box things. That it is possible to save thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars in this process, if that's something that you want to do. If that's one of your goals, that is something that can happen. Do you want to reduce the price of your higher education? Okay, that can happen. And I can give you 100% certainty that your student will get what they need to be successful in higher education and beyond, if they focus on these things and focus on these 4 keys. What you may need is a guide from the side, and I can show you personally how you can have a calmer, cheaper, more successful college admissions process by working with someone who can keep it sane, keep it simple, and focus on what's really important as your student is blazing their own path. I can help you map this college journey out. I can help the student craft their own path for themselves. So I invite you to talk to me one-on-one, if you wish, to focus on what really matters and to help your child and you as a parent stay sane so that you can get better results and create a meaningful process that really has long-lasting effects, well beyond that letter of admission. So what do we offer? We offer personalized one-on-one guidance through the college application process. We have two different packages depending on what your goals are and what the students' goals are and what the students' needs are. We provide mentorship to focus on what really matters. We want to help students blaze their own path, not follow a cookie cutter approach. You can start any time on this process. We have students who start very early. We have students who start late. There are advantages to all of that, but it's never too late to make this more interesting, more sane, and more successful. So I invite you to complete our application online, to tell me a little bit more about you, to ask your burning questions, and describe your situation, because every student is different, every family is different. I want you to share what is frustrating to you, what's worrying you, and explain a little bit what kind of help you feel you need in this process. So once you send that application in, we'll sit down for 45 minutes and have a talk about how our process works and figure out whether or not we're really a good fit for each other, whether we can provide the kind of guidance that your student needs to blaze their own path, and determine that way forward. If it's something we can do that will help, we'll certainly tell you. If it's not a good fit, we'll also tell you that. And I want to remind you that for sticking around, we're going to provide you with some free resources, our 10 essential tips for college admissions process, and also for planning that perfect college visit. As I mentioned before, college visits are sometimes a useless experience. There are ways to make it very, very helpful. So I'm happy to be sharing these things with you after this webinar is over. So I look forward to hearing from you. I hope you'll fill out our application. But most of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, to learn these 4 keys to selective college admission. I hope you found it helpful, and thank you for taking the time. Good luck.